Go ahead. I can. Alhamdulillah wahdahu. والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue in this tremendous treatise, in this tremendous book by the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, the great reviser of what was the true and the correct understanding of Islam, starting with the fundamentals of laying down what is monotheism, which is unification of Allah Ta'ala in His worship. As we know, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, everything of the chapters that we've been covering, all are given details of how or what is the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and how that manifests in all these acts of worship. And likewise, like we said, we've been covering what is the different aspects of what? Polytheism, and the different types, and the different ways that one can fall into it. We covered the chapter, as we talked about, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, of establishing what is a ruqya al-shar'iyya. What is that incantation that has been legislated, and what is contradictory to it, which is those incantations that are either innovated practices or those practices that are considered polytheism likewise, which are not what for one to do, because if he does it, he will nullify his Islam, and his Islam will be nullified. We concluded the chapter previously, and like we talked about, each chapter that we've been covering is giving details of what is the meaning of La ilaha illallah. For a lot of the Muslims these days, like we talked about, and you'll find in the different masajid, they are not teaching these principles, and which comes as a result of it, like we talked about before, they fall into a lot of matters that will be considered matters that will invalidate and nullify their Islam, due to the fact of their lack of knowledge in the fundamental principles. The fundamentals is everything, because everything else builds upon it. For even like we talked about before, in tackling different types of ambiguities and doubtful matters that are out there about the religion of Al-Islam, if one's belief system is not sound and is not deep-rooted in himself correctly, what will come as a result of it, like we said, he will not be able to repel those different ambiguities out of his heart, in which, if it penetrates his heart, it will cause some type of doubt and he'll go astray. And there's so many out there. And if one does not deep root himself in the fundamentals, then those different types of winds of doubtful matters will blow by him, put a doubt in his heart, and then like we said, as a result of it, he'll go astray. For what we say, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, in regards to the new chapter which we're about to start, as we concluded, one chapter that explains the meaning of La ilaha illallah. So the new chapter where we're going to embark upon is another explanation and another detail, a critical detail of explaining the meaning of La ilaha illallah. As the new chapter which we will start on is another aspect of worship which Shaitan himself, or the devil, if you want to say, Shaitan himself has beautified, not only for the non-Muslims, but even the Muslims themselves, which he opened this door up in order for them to fall into the most dangerous sin, which is polytheism. Shaitan comes in different ways. And another way that you'll find from the doors that Shaitan tries to enter or allow or trick the people into falling into is from different aspects of worship, which is only supposed to be for Allah. But however, he tricks the people in to coming in this door, in which, like we said, he utilizes it for them to fall into polytheism. And this, which you'll find, what happened with a lot of the Muslims in certain different countries, in which you'll find, if you go to different countries or different types of customs or practices that they do in their countries, you'll find that they are falling into this aspect of what we're about to speak about right now, which is called At-Tabarruk, meaning seeking blessing with something other than Allah, or something or someone. But you'll find that they what? You'll find that they take their clothes, or they rub their hands, or they what? They wipe their bodies, or wipe themselves, or a particular thing, or a particular person, thinking that is what? Drawing them close to Allah. But however, it is taking them further away, in which we call, and which we'll speak about right now, the chapter is called At-Tabarruk. Or what they say, Man tabarraka bi shajarin aw hajarin wa nahwihima. Whoever seeks a blessing by a tree or a rock or anything similar to it. We talked about incantations. It's the chapter which preceded this one previously. We already mentioned and said, and we gave details about all the other aspect of, or this aspect of what we spoke about from last lesson, which is called Ar-Ruqya, incantations. We talked about what is legislated and what is not. For all these different types of practices that you will find in weird customs, in which is so-called folklore, if you want to call it superstitions, as we talked about before, all of that is prohibited. For verily Islam only came in order to tie the heart to the person to one deity in all these affairs. For the next chapter, like we said, and we're going to start on, is in regards to what they call a tabarruk. The meaning tabarruk in the Arabic language is to seek a blessing. Is to seek a blessing. If you notice in the chapter, in your book, it says whoever seeks blessing with a tree or a rock or anything similar to it. Tabarruk, as we know, a tabarruk is another aspect of worship which one can perform. However, like we said, we have to return back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of the Sahaba, of how they used to seek blessing and what was legislated and what they did of what is correct, and this being applied properly. Notice that the great Imam, and what he mentioned, and he started off the chapter and he inaugurated the chapter by putting this title in it. He says, whoever seeks blessing by a tree or a rock or anything similar to it. If you notice that he used the title, or under the title, he put the ayah, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, if you look in your books, it says, do you not see Al-Lat wal-Uzza wa manat al-Thalithat al-Ukhra alakum al-Dhakaru wa lahu al-Untha tilka idhan qismatun dhiza. He said, do you see Al-Lat wal-Uzza and also Manat, which is the other three, or is the other third, excuse me. Does it belong to you, those males, and does it belong to Allah, females? Right. So he used this ayah as an evidence and proof, which goes under the heading of the chapter, which is what, everyone? Read it for me, Jamal. Just read the title of the chapter. Read everything. Keep reading. Al-Uzza. Keep going. Hunayn. You had it.
Well, we had just recently left disbelief. The Mushrikeen had a note tree which they used to frequent and hang their swords upon. They called it that al-Anwat, possessor of the metals of honor. That's what it says. We said, O Messenger of Allah, can you make a that al-Anwat for us like their that al-Anwat?
That's just a name. We'll talk about that, inshallah. Don't explain, don't worry.
Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Allahu Akbar. This way that you have mentioned, by the one in whose hands my soul is just like what the children of Israel and asked Musa, make a God for us like their God. He said, surely you are an ignorant people. You will follow the way of those before you.
Jayim. So the title of the chapter, whoever seeks blessing with a tree or with a rock or anything similar to it. If you go over to different Muslim countries, some of the Muslim countries such as Egypt, and you will find that there are different graves that have been made either in certain places or in put in certain masajid. All of these matters are what? Unlawful. And it's a dhari'atu min dhara'i' shirk. And it is a method and a means for one to fall into polytheism. If you notice in those different graves that are being utilized, in which you'll find that those graves which is in it people from those who are righteous, either Abdul Qadir al-Jilani or Imam al-Shafi'i or Layth ibn Sa'd, and even Hussein, who's the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, who's the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. These graves, for example, that are in Egypt, you'll find that they have a sadana, in which we're going to talk about right now. What we're reading right now is exactly what's taking place today. In the name of Islam, whether or not they are non-Muslims or non-Muslims, we'll discuss. Don't worry. We do not make takfir and rush to declare anyone to be outside the fold of Islam, in which we'll give in a second, inshallah, the dalil for that. You'll find that the graves in which the people not only, you'll find that they take some of the women, will rub up against it, take some of the dirt from the grave site and keep it as a souvenir, or they'll rub their bodies against it, or they'll rub their clothes against it, or they'll touch the grave. All these things is what they're doing. What they're doing is exactly what's being explained here. They're trying to seek blessing by it. You'll find that even to a certain point, that even some of the women do something obscene, something with their chest and taking it and rubbing themselves with it. Yes, doing all these ignorant affairs of what was done prior towards Islam. You'll find these graves in which are being worshipped and the people are seeking blessings by. From them, for example, is the grave of Hussein. You'll find that they have a sadana, they'll have a custodian, and they will have a watcher over it, and they will have people going to this grave in order to what? Seek blessing to it. The grave of Hussein, radiyallahu anhu ardah, if you go back to the history, even in the Bidayah wa Nihaya, and if you go back to the tarikh or the history of whether or not Hussein was truly buried in Egypt, you'll find that there's a major discrepancy and contradiction to the story of where Hussein died and how he died and where he's truly buried. If you go back to the history, what happened with Hussein, radiyallahu anhu. Hussein, as we know, was killed unjustly in Iraq. It was in Iraq. And what took place of that oppression in which he was killed and he was set up, in which Hussein, like we talked about before, was beheaded and unjustly killed. Hussein, the Emir of Iraq, had said, his head, let it be brought to me at the time, which is in Iraq now. He said, let his head be brought to me, which is in Iraq, which is in Iraq. When the head of Hussein was brought, the Emir of Iraq commanded that his head be what? Sent to where his body was buried. Where, everyone? In Al-Madinah. So the body of Hussein is in Al-Madinah, in the Baqi', the grave site that is right by the Haram in Medina. Hussein's body is there and his head is there. Both, radiyallahu anhu ardah. And it was commanded that he be buried right beside his brother, Hassan, radiyallahu anhuma. So if the story of the history of what happened with Hassan with Hussein, or what happened with Hussein rather, his head and the body of Hussein is in the Baqi' in Al-Medina. It's there. So that what they're doing of performing in Egypt, basically just to sum it up, is all what? Baseless. You'll find that people take advantage of the people by them spending their money, utilizing their money, seeking blessing for something that's truly in reality not there. So one now is performing all these acts of worship for something that's basically what? Baseless. For Hussein radiallahu an, his body nor his head is in Egypt. So all of this in which the people are taking advantage of, as far as the people's so-called feelings, and the people's so-called money, and so-called worship, is all being taken advantage of for something that is really, in actuality, not a reality. So that's in regards to the grave of Hussein. You'll find that the Muslims in these days and times, especially in the places of Egypt, not only do they do exactly what we're about to explain in this chapter, which you'll find and we will read, inshallah, what happened with the polytheists, of what they used to do. Keep in mind, the polytheists during the time of the Prophet ﷺ only used to set up partners with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala from the aspect that they just thought that between them and Allah, that these deities that they were worshiping along with Allah were just mere, what they say, wasa'iq, that they were just mere mediators, that's it. They never thought that these things can actually, for example, that they were taken as deities along with Allah in His worship, that these things, for example, can create or sustain or any of these matters. That wasn't the belief of the polytheists of the past during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They had no belief whatsoever that these idols that they were worshiping could create, could sustain, could benefit, or cause something trivial to happen in one's life, or something evil to happen, or take away, or what have you. That wasn't their belief. Rather, you'll find, due to the lack of knowledge, and like we said, due to those scholars that are evil in these different places that are misleading the people, you'll find, like we said, the Muslims of today, especially in these places that are being misled, they even increased in doing something which is worse that the polytheists of the past didn't do. Thinking that these type of people who are righteous, people who are dead, can actually have some type of effect in their lives, whereas they can allow something evil to happen to them, or they can take away some type of trivial matter in their life, or they can provide for them, or have mercy upon them, or all these different matters in which none of the polytheists of the past believed. Rather, we've said, and we have mentioned this on numerous occasions, you'll find that they actually have gone further than what the mushrikeen had fell into during the time of the Prophet ﷺ in this aspect only, which is an affair which is the most important, which is an ibadah. However, they set up partners with Allah Ta'ala in the aspect of rububiyyah, lordship, which is something unprecedented, something even more evil, which is the belief that the dead can benefit you, or the dead can allow evil things to happen to you, or, for example, even though they're righteous, to the point where not even only they suffice with falling into polytheism in the aspect of rububiyyah, also they follow and they have done something extra that none of the polytheists of the past did, which is they even make tawaf, make circumambulation around what? These people and their graves, which is something what? Something totally far worse. Even the mushrikeen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ only stick to tawaf and circumambulation around what? Around the Kaaba only. I mean, going around as far as in worship. Around the Kaaba. But however, in Egypt now, they set up another place where people to make tawaf around, which is around certain what? Graves. Which is something extra. That's something that is what? Unprecedented. So not only do they believe that the dead can benefit or can harm, or it can provide or sustain or give death or give life or allow or even give children or allow children to be created in the wombs of the women or what have you. All this is polytheism in the aspect, like we said, where everyone, and the aspect of rububiyyah. And they even add another addition onto that, which is to what? Even make tawaf around some of these graves, which is something that is totally horrific. In contrast to what the Prophet ﷺ had called the mushrikeen to, like we said, they only believed that their idols were just middlemen. That's it. Similar to what the Christians believe, that Jesus is the middleman. Similar to likewise, like we said, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the mushrikeen only thought that these idols, they can't create, they can't sustain, they cannot do anything of harming us or what, or affecting our lives. However, they used to worship them only for the belief, for the aspect that they were just mediators between them and Allah. And that's it. However, in these regards, like we said today, of what's happening even with the Muslims, how in those different places they have fell into something which is more horrific. Shirk or polytheism and the aspect of rububiyyah is something that is unprecedented. To the point, like we talked about before, they add to even make tawaf around the grave. To the point, like we talked about, some of the graves you'll find that they have a custodian that they set up. And they have 4 pillars around the grave. And I'm not sure it's around the grave of Hussein. I think it's around the grave of what they say and claim it's Hussein. 4 pillars. And they go around the pillars. And each pillar, the custodian of it, he will slow them down. And each pillar, you know what it has at the end of it? A box to put money in. And once they get to another pillar, once they get from one pillar to another in the middle, they say, Is'aw, go fast, hurry up, go fast, hurry up. Then when we get to the other pillar, where the box is for the money, slow down. Slow the person down in order to put the money inside of the what? The box. And they have in that, not only in that particular area, not only in that area do they have a custodian telling them to do this and pushing them to what? Move fast, and then when they get to another pillar, slow down, put your money in it. Then they go to another one, put your money in that box too. Then like this until they so-called finish their tawaf. Jayyid. Then on top of that, you'll find in that same place they have so-called scholars teaching the people to do this. And that this matter is what? Legislated. And this is what? This is worship. And this is what? This is Tawheed. This is Tawheed because it's considered Mahabbatus Salihin, for the love of the righteous. Right? So, and they're also warned at the same time, those who say that this is polytheism, don't listen to them. Rather, those are from the extremists, the mutashaddideen, the mutatarrifeen. Those are the extremists. Don't listen to those people. This right here is monotheism. This is worship of Allah. And this is considered love of the righteous. Right, everyone? So not only do they have a place where they make tawaf around these graves, and not only do they have a custodian. They have a custodian for these graves. Have a curtain and everything. Everything I'm saying, you're going to see how it's going to manifest here in this book of what happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And now you take it and apply it to what's taking place today and how it's similar. Do we make takfir of this? No doubt. You'll find that the people who practice or do this type of what? Nonsense. You'll find that the custodians are, if you want to say for lack of better words, in cahoots, and are also likewise cooperating with those scholars of evil who are misleading the people. And you'll find that they live off the money of the people that put inside the sadaqah box, so-called, misleading the people upon falsehood. And they know, those custodians and those scholars who are evil know that what they're doing is absolute what? Absolute batil and falsehood. Take advantage of the people of their what? Of their emotional love for the religion. Not based upon knowledge that is accurate, but their emotional love of the religion, taking advantage of it and misguiding and misleading the people because of their what? Their emotional love for the religion. This is the type of jahiliyyah, and this is a type of what? Pre-Islamic type of ways in which the Prophet ﷺ came to eradicate. Right, everyone? You'll find that they have, for example, the grave of Hussein, the grave of. Likewise, even the great scholars of we know from our scholars of the religion, which is Imam al-Shafi'i. Even Imam al-Shafi'i, they have a place where his, for example, they have different functions in different people's lives. If you go ask him and raise your hands in supplication, he will do this for you. He will get you, for example, he will allow something of an evil to be relieved from your life. Then you have the great alim and the great scholar from Ahl Sunnah, who was what? Layth ibn Sa'd. We know Layth ibn Sa'd was from the great scholars of Ahl Sunnah, especially from the past. Layth ibn Sa'd, rahimahullah. They even have a special place of where he's at, and where you could go make dua to him. And he has a specific function, and he has a specific function of what he can do in your life. This type of speech, like we said, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwa, is polytheism in rububiyyah. Because this was not the belief of the what? The polytheists. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? To believe that a person that they can do something in your life, they can remove some type of evil, something trivial, or something evil in your life and change it and make it better. All this is what? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, everyone? This type of belief is worse, like we said, than the belief and the corrupt ideologies of the polytheists of the past. Something that is way more on another level. However, do we say now and declare that these Muslims are what? Are non-Muslims? Are they outside the fold of Islam? We say, and what? We mentioned in this regard to say, and alhamdulillah, I'm with exactly what Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, what he says, and with the great Imam Shaykh Muhammad Amal al-Jami that he mentions in this regard. He says we do not make takfir on them. Meaning we do not declare them to be unbelievers or disbelievers. He says due to two reasons. He says, of course we know if a person is ignorant and he sets out to seek the truth or what is correct, and in him seeking the truth, he finds what he's upon still is incorrect. He did the best of what he could. He went out, sought out the truth, looked for it, still came up short. Is he blameworthy? Is he excused due to his what? Due to his ignorance. He set out the truth, wanted to know it, looked for it, came up short. Found out what he's upon is what? Still false, of course. We say when actuality was he's still doing is what? Incorrect. But he put forth the effort in looking for what is what? What is correct. This person, we said, is excused due to his ignorance. Now, a person that's neglectful, doesn't care, doesn't have any type of what? Zeal in order to learn what is correct, then his hukum and his ruling is different. However, the person who sought out the truth, and we know that a person, when he seeks out the truth, the first person that he's going to more than likely consult with is somebody that has, or what he thinks is someone that has knowledge, right or wrong. The person he's going to first go to is someone he thinks that has some knowledge of what he believes and what he's upon. So he goes out and he seeks and he says to him, for number one, I sought the truth. Now on top of that, there's another problem. The other problem he's now facing is someone that he's gaining knowledge from or taking knowledge from is someone that is evil. And someone that is what? Misleading him. And someone that purposely tells him something incorrect in order to what? Attain his money. So now, what has come as a result of it is two affairs. Number one is, he what? He came up short as far as what he tried to put forth an effort. What he came up short in, of course, is in the aspect of what is correct and what we're learning now. Is he blameworthy? We say in this instance, no. He's excused due to his ignorance. Number two, what's also has now affected him is that he what? Due to those evil scholars that have misled him, which comes as a result of it, there's what they call a shubha. There is a doubtful matter that was what? Planted in his belief, which came as a result of it, of what? Him going astray. So in this instance, we say that these people are what? Excused due to their ignorance. For a person who's jahil or ignorant of also from the usul, or from the foundations or the roots or the foundation or the fundamentals of the religion of Islam in regards, for example, the worship of Allah or the names and the attributes of Allah by distorting them, which we'll talk about later, don't worry. you'll find of what the Muslims, what they believe as far as what has been affected, where they have deviant principles or deviated principles. Do we say now that they're non-Muslims as a result of it, or they left the fold of Islam? Shaykh al-Islam had brought as a evidence and proof in this regard the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where we know where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam talk about the man that was from Bani Israel, that he was ignorant of umum qudratillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, the generality of the ability of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, if I was to die, إذا مت أنا, he says, فاجمعوني وحرقوني وذروني في البحر فإن الله إذا قدر الله علي فجمعني فإنه لا يعذبني عذابا لم يعذب أحد من قبلي. What's the end of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said about the man from Bani Israel? What happened to him? Well, the man from Bani Israel, as we know, he was ignorant of the generality of the absolute perfect ability of Allah. Well, we know that Allah Ta'ala is able to do all things, which happened during the time of Bani Israel. What did he say? He says, if I was to die, take my body, gather it, burn it, and scatter my ashes into the sea. For verily, if Allah Ta'ala, if He gets me, and He gathers me together, then He will punish me a punishment that He's never punished anyone from before. So we know that at the end of the narration, what did Allah Ta'ala do? Gathered his ashes and gathered his body together. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him, why did you do that? And what happened, everyone? He says, out of fear of you. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Overlooked what he did. What he did as an affair, which was what? As Shaykh al-Islam put it out, it said that he was ignorant of something that is known and established in all the minds of those who what? Have the correct belief, which is what? To affirm the absolute perfect ability of Allah. That He's able to do all things. To the point, like we said, he was ignorant of something of a principle of what is supposed to be acknowledged by all the Muslims who have a sound creed and a sound belief. This person was ignorant of it. Something that was known and established as a foundation in regards to the what? The general perfect ability of Allah Ta'ala. And despite of that, he was what? Forgiven and overlooked. Why? Due to his ignorance of something that's considered from the asl of the usul, or the foundation of the principles of what one is supposed to know. You understand, everyone? And despite of that, it says the Shaykh al-Islam used this hadith, this particular narration, to show how a person who's ignorant, how if he sets out, comes up short, still wrong, but even though he tried, that he's excused due to his ignorance. And this likewise apply on what? The person who fell into this particular what? These particular matters that we mentioned in here. The person set out, still was misled. And we know that the Muslimun, or the people who generally, like we said, when they set out to look for the truth, the first people they're going to turn to is their what? The people who have knowledge. So that person that he came to told him something incorrect, misleading, allowed him to fall into something that is also what? Prohibited. Is he now going to be held accountable on the day of resurrection? We said that if he tried, he put forth effort, he tried, this is what he came up with, excuse due to his what? Due to his ignorance. Even though, like we talked about before, we still say, at the end of the day, his actions are actions of shirk and disbelief. Still have to say that. The action that he's committing is an act of disbelief, and it's an act that will nullify Islam. And it's actions of shirk and polytheism. So that's what we mentioned and say. Still, even though we say he's excused due to his ignorance, however, at the same time we say his a'mal or his actions are still what? Actions of disbelief and actions of what? A polytheism. About to start, everybody has snuffles today. You understand, everyone? So, in this regard now, how is this applicable to what we're about to mention in this chapter? So now you have the graves that we just mentioned. We have so many different graves. I'm sure that a lot of people will see As they travel to different countries around the Muslims, certain strange things you'll be, what are they doing? Women now are taking out their different parts of their bodies and rubbing it on the grave and rubbing it on the dirt, taking the dirt of the dead, rubbing their bodies with it, taking the dirt of the dead of the person who's in the dead and putting it in the bag, taking it home as a souvenir, allowing their children to rub it, thinking that they're gaining some type of blessing from it. These are the type of jahiliyat, of the type of affairs of pre-Islamic ignorance in which the Prophet ﷺ erased how the Muslims are still living in these matters. But however, we do not say that they are left the fold of Islam due to the fact that the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmad al-Jami, what he says, if you will find that the Muslimun that are being misled in comparison to the Mushrikeen, no doubt, we say what the Muslim fell into specifically here is worse than the times of the Mushrikeen of before. No doubt, in this aspect of Rububiyyah and Al-Uluhiyyah, they committed an act that not even the polytheists during the time of the Prophet ﷺ did not even do. However, due to all those reasons that we said, we just mentioned and we have to say it again, that they are excused. Are they worse than the Mushrikeen? Totally. We said due to the fact that now you'll find that others from Ahl Ilm look on the other side of looking to their belief in the hereafter, their belief in performing Hajj, performing Siyam or Ramadan, performing a salawat 5 times a day, and all the other aspects they affirm. This is the reason why we say that they're still in the fold of Islam and they excuse due to their ignorance because of the other aspects and the other different affairs in which are correct and sound. But in this regard of and we say regretfully, the whole foundation of what Islam goes around, no doubt has been warped and altered due to the fact, like we said, either due to taqleed of them blind follow those evil scholars and due to their ignorance and lack of knowledge. So we do not declare them to be outside the fold of Islam due to these reasons. However, we still say that the actions that they're committing are actions of disbelief. But at the same time, like we talked about before, this is what allows us not to declare them to be kuffar. And that's why we do not rush to make takfir or declare a Muslim to be an unbeliever, especially in those Muslim countries where we see these practices are done. But however, like we said, they're being misled by those evil scholars that are there. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Where's E.B.? So now we get to the first ayah. Allah Ta'ala says in this book, now we're going to compare to what the mushrikeen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ used to do. He says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى. Do you see Lat? Is it time for the adhan already? Who knows how to call the adhan? No, we're not talking about. No, I said the grandsons of Saddam Hussein. No, it has nothing to do with Saddam Hussein. We're talking about the grandsons of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. Oh, nobody thought I was talking about Saddam Hussein. It has nothing to do with that. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. No, we was talking about the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ. The grandson of the Prophet ﷺ was Hussein. A lot of the people believe in Egypt that he's buried there. Like we talked about, if you look at the books of awe and history, Hussein was killed unjustly. He was murdered unjustly. And he was also misled by the Shia. What's so strange is they claimed that they love Ali, but at the same time they were people that cooperated, and they were people who actually were co-conspirators with other people in order to kill his son, which is absolutely strange. You go out for Ali, but you still play the part in his son being killed, which is extremely strange. And as we know from the times of old up to now, they are people of makr and khiyana, since the time of now and all the way up to these days. Since the times of 1,000 years ago, they've been people of treachery, people that smile in your face while they're waiting with a knife holder behind their back, waiting to strike at any time, when they got the right time to do it. They've been like that for thousands of years, and it's so sad to the point where now the deviant sects cooperate with them, thinking that they're trustworthy, not realizing that what is waiting for what they did from the time of old is the same thing what they're going to do to you today. And that's exactly what's going on. And they are the main propagators of terrorism around the Muslim countries of today. The Shia are in Iran. Majority of terrorism now are funded by what's taking place in Iran. They are supporters of it. Do not be fooled. They are supporters of it. All the different Shia that are spread out all throughout the Middle East, that are bombing and killing, and supporters and people who have also likewise participated in certain acts of terrorism, they have fled back to Iran. What happened even in Saudi even about a while ago, was someplace they took place of certain acts of bombings where they were sneaking different bombs inside of the countries of Saudi Arabia, sneaking bombs into what caused terrorism. Then the people who were actually participating in this matter, they fled back to Iran because they know they wanted to be granted asylum in their own country, and that if they're extradited to their own country, they will be granted asylum where they want. If Saudi Arabia says we want those people, they cannot now extradite their own. Meaning if they cannot get rid of their own people. Once you get in their country, they're protected in Iran. So now when Saudi says hand over those people who wanted to kill and now cause all this havoc and chaos, hand them over. So no, they're here in our country now. They're granted asylum. We can't extradite our own. We can't give our own away. Iran is responsible for the terrorism that's going on in Yemen with the Houthiyyin. They're responsible, what's taking place with Hezbollah, what's taking place even in Libya. They're responsible for the terrorism likewise that's taking place in Palestine, even taking the place in what's the name of the country? In Syria, and even likewise they're widespread and they give supplies to those that's in Bahrain, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. They are the main propagators of terrorism. It's the Shia and the Rawafid who are now in Iran. They are the main propagators of it. And even the Shia now who are now causing havoc and raining havoc in what? Even in Iraq. All around the world. They are supporters and monetary providers for all these people. The Houthiyyin, the Zaydiyya, every country. They are the ones who are supporting terrorism. For the Shia also likewise, keep in mind, you know who started grave worshiping? It was the Shia. The Shiites are the main ones that started the grave worshiping in Islam, and so-called to mislead the Muslims. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't realize that the first people who started the filthy act of great worshiping the dead was by the Shia. It was by the Rawafid. And what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in the book Minhaj al-Sunnah, they were the first that started this pathetic, evil way by introducing this type of practice of grave worshiping and worshiping the dead. Then it got passed on to the deviant sect called the Sufiya. And the Sufis took their acts of grave worshiping, thinking that they're worshiping so-called awliya of Allah, that they claim from their own mystic, so-called wicked scholars that they so-called revere and they find to be so-called, raise them to the level, some of them raise them to the level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have taken that practice from the Shia. The Shia is the one, they're the ones that took their acts from the Shia until the point where you'll find that the Sufis, even today, they have practices of Rafidiyya, of Rafid. A lot of their practices are taken from the Rawafid. The Rafid of the Shia, it's the same thing. The Rawafid of the Shia. So the deviant sect of Sufis took their practices from the Rawafid and the Shia. Of this act, which is what? Called grave worshiping. Now, as regards into what is a tabarruk, listen to what happened when Allah Ta'ala says in this book of Surah An-Najm, He says, do you see Al-Lat wal-Uzza? Al-Lat. Who is Al-Lat? We know this and we learned this in Al-Qawa'id Al-Arba' that Al-Lat is of two tafsir. I'm sure that all of the brothers, or some of the brothers probably already know the answer to this. Al-Lat, Allah Ta'ala talks about, do you see Lat and Al-Uzza? A lot of these names that you'll find in which this is mentioned in the ayah is a derivative of different names of Allah, as we know. Right, everyone? The different derivatives in the names of Allah Ta'ala, such as Allah. So they flipped it and made it a feminine name, Al-Lat. Then we know that one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz. So they flipped it and made a what? A feminine name, Uzza. Then now they had another name for the deities they used to worship. All these were deities that they used to what? That the polytheists during the time of the Prophet ﷺ used to worship. One of them was what? Al-Lat. Like he said, they took the name of Allah, flipped it. Allah flipped it to Al-Lat. Then Uzza, they flipped it to Aziz. From Aziz to Uzza. Then the name Mannan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a Mannan. They flipped it into what? Manat. So all of them are female names. So they made them like females. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end of the ayah, what did he say? Alakumul dhakaru wa lahul untha. He says, you have males while Allah has females. For the point where Allah ta'ala knows that during the time of the Arab, as we know, during their time, they used to prefer what, everyone? They used to prefer the males over the females. During the time of Jahiliyyah, during the time of pre-Islamic ignorance, they used to what? Be happy when they had boys, and they would have what? They would bring and think it was a bad omen to have girls. That girls would bring dishonor to the family. And that was considered a what? Something of a dishonor, a disgrace to the family to have a female. Absolutely. It's to bury them alive. To the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this, and to the point where He criticized them by saying, you give Allah the girls and you give yourselves the boys. Until it says in the ayah, whatever, everyone, Tilka idan qismatun diza. As you know, this is an oppressive type of what? Distribution. Even you yourselves are not pleased with this. So why would you give Allah the girls? Based upon your wicked belief. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone, so far? طيب. So Allah Ta'ala says about Al-Lat, from them is two tafsir. Number one explanation of the meaning of the word Lat. The first one, as we know, was based upon what? Wal-A'mash, or Ahl Ilm, what they mentioned is saying, one of the tafsir of the meaning of Al-Lat, that it was a rock. They said the meaning of Lat, it was a rock. It was a white rock that was carved. It was carved. And upon it was a structure. And it was in a place that we know of today, which is called At-Ta'if, which is not far from Mecca. Maybe about an hour away from Mecca. Ta'if is about an hour away from Mecca. Still to these days. But at any rate, Lat was considered upon one explanation that it was a rock. It was a white rock that was carved. And upon it was a structure. And it was close by the area, even to this day it exists. This area, which is At-Ta'if, which is beautiful. It's not far away from Mecca. And it's usually during the summertime, the weather is beautiful. That's why you find a lot of Ahl Ilm these days, at times they travel to Ta'if, even during the summer. From them is Sheikh Salih Fawzan. He goes to what? Ta'if. At any rate, this particular, yeah, they called it. Somebody called it. Oh. This particular idol that the mushrikeen used to worship. It was either a rock that was carved and it was a white rock that was made, and they also likewise, and listen to similar to what I mentioned about a half an hour ago, they also had a custodian and they also had a curtain to it. Had a custodian to watch over it, and they had a what? Had a curtain over it. And we know that it was watched by the group which was Thaqif, which was a group, which was a tribe that used to watch over this particular idol. So what they used to worship was a rock. They used to brag over it, and they used to brag about it with their enemies from the different tribes of the Arab, of the Quraysh. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, when he came with the truth, he ordered that this idol be destroyed. Right, everyone? So that upon one tafsir, or one explanation of the meaning of Lat was a what? It was a rock, right, everyone? For those who study Al-Qa'id al-Arba', they already know this. The second one is meaning for Lat. We're still talking about Lat. The second meaning of Lat, he was a man. He was a righteous man. My heck is hurting. That's one of the meanings. The first meaning was a white rock, and the second meaning was what? He was a righteous man. And he used to what? He used to feed the people who came for Hajj. Because even though during the time of the Prophet, like something before he came, the people still used to come to Mecca to perform Hajj. Even though he used to have polytheistic rituals in it, but the people still used to come there. And some of the people who are upon the religion of Ibrahim, who used to be upon the religion of Ibrahim, because we know that Ibrahim or Abraham or what he was upon that he was the one that raised the house in Mecca. It's kind of strange that to the point where even the Christians don't realize that Abraham was the one who even built the house in Mecca. Right? He was the one that built the structure, laid down the foundations. So when now even the people who were trying to practice his way, that wanted to hold on to what he was upon, used to come and perform, as we know, Hajj. Tayyib. Allat, upon the second meaning, he was a what? Righteous man. And he used to give that type of food to the Hujjaj or to the pilgrims who were coming to perform Hajj. They used to sell it. And they used to say they used to sell this type of food by this white rock. That white rock. He used to sell it by the white rock. Until the point where he died, how the people used to revere and respect him so much, until the point where that white rock or that place where he used to what? Feed them, then it became a place of worship. First it became a so-called a place of respect for him, but it was raised and it was raised and it was raised and it was raised until what? It became an object of worship. Right, everyone? He said from when he died, then the people started to actually worship him. Or they worshiped the rock. So it was not only upon one first meaning, either there was the rock or it was the person himself. For here, we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll stop here because I think it's getting late and it's almost time for the Iqamah. Also, likewise. When is time for the Iqamah? I think it's about another 5 more minutes. 2 more minutes. When did it come in? 8:45? I think it came in about 8:45, I think. 8:35. Oh, yeah, we have to stop. Any questions about the lesson? Oh, no. He was cremated. He believed in the uluhiyyah. From what was apparent is that he did believe in the uluhiyyah of Allah, in the worship of Allah. However, he was ignorant of something that was considered as far as the foundations of the names of Allah and His ability and the name of Asma wa Sifat. As far as now, even with the Muslims have deviated in the aspect of that regard, how Shaykh al-Islam uses this hadith to show that those Muslims who deviated in the aspect of the third category of Tawheed, which is in the names and the attributes of Allah, he used that particular narration because he was ignorant of the general ability or general capability of Allah Ta'ala. He was ignorant of it. To the point where he said, if Allah Ta'ala is able to take my body, burn it, he said burn it and scatter it. For a Muslim now, of course we know what we learn. We know that Allah Ta'ala has the ability to do all things. For now, for one to do that type of act, of course we know cremation is impermissible. But if one is ignorant of something of a foundation of what he's supposed to know, because he didn't have the opportunity to learn it, or he was misguided, or he took the knowledge from a wrong individual, misguided him, clearly. And we have how many Muslims around the city and the areas that we know that they try to look for the truth and they end up somewhere they shouldn't be? Too many to be counted. Every day we hear of Muslims that go into certain masajid and then they talk to you. You be like, where did you learn that? Where you go? Who told you that? Right now, the masjid that's on 45th Street. If you go to Philadelphia, 45th Street. It's the masjid of the Ahbash, the Habashi masjid. I have a 2-book refutation on their belief system. If you was to read, you should have stayed home. Take the rukhsa. Take the rukhsa and relax yourself. I have a 2-volume refutation against the Ahbash. And I was reading their foundations of what they believe. You wouldn't even think they're Muslim. They're like, it's so warped. Of what they believe. What they believe will blow your mind. I have it right in my office. It will blow your mind. But a person driving by the masjid, they think it's a masjid, and they see the women covering. The Muslims they're wearing thobe, some of them, and some of them wear kufis. But if you read the fundamentals of what it's based upon, it's something totally in contrast with the Prophet ﷺ taught, and what is the true, pure fundamentals of what is Islam, the correct understanding of it correctly. Something totally different. Stuff I'm talking about, you wouldn't even believe. It's like you wouldn't even think they was Muslim to the point with some of the stuff they believe. Like I'm talking about, it's permissible to make dua to the dead. It's permissible to seek refuge in other than Allah. It's permissible to now even call on other than Allah. Oh yeah. It's either permissible to now call on the dead, to call and make dua to people who are dead, to put graves inside to the end of it. They even the Bab al-Asma wa Sifat, that's the lightest of probably what. That's a whole nother deviation. The names and the attributes of Allah, what they deviated in. Let's get down to the root of monotheism, of unifying Allah and His worship. The whole list of polytheism that they believe. And then you wonder why when you see certain things that they do, you're not surprised. Because they're quick to shed the blood of a person. Quick to declare a person a kafir. And they're quick to what? To not even shed the blood of an individual. They will hurt you. Because anybody who deviates in those principles are subjected to what? They're subjected to radicalism, terrorism, shedding your blood, and declaring you a kafir quick. And if you go down there, that's what they do. You believe that? You're a kafir. Whoa. I've experienced that with my own self, with my own eyes. They're quick to do it. Why? Why is because now the non-Muslims say infidel. I know they say that in a lot of their shows. It's not infidel. It's a disbeliever. A person who doesn't believe. Tayyib. So a person now that believes that, they go to this masjid, they see this. So I know a lot of people that first took shahada, they take shahada through them. So they teach them all these deviant ideologies. Mislead the individual. They not know where to go, well, what to do. This is what I know. This is where I took shahada. This is what I thought Islam was. This is where thought I was supposed to so-called be guided right. What do? They've been misled. Believe all these deviant ideologies pumped in their head. To the point where even one of them, even when I was riding in the car, this is back in the 90s, when I first took Shahada. Even when I was sitting in the car, I told him, don't go to that masjid back in the 90s. Don't go there. Do not go to that masjid. Oh, no, I'll be all right. Then he used the other methodology. Oh, I can know the truth, separate the falsehood from the truth that they can so-called teach. To the end of the nonsense. I said, I'm trying to tell you, how are you going to know the truth? Do you know the truth even to distinguish between the two? That's number one. Number two, we know that even from the methodology of the Salaf, that they never used to sit with people of deviance, that they know that it was going to take a risk on corrupting their belief system. They didn't even take a risk on sitting with them. Because the purest thing that a person carries with him, and the most important and the most vital that it stays intact, is your belief system. Because the first thing that everyone will be addressed on the day of resurrection will be about your belief system. What you used to worship in this world. That's the first thing you're going to be asked about. Everybody in the whole creation, when Allah gathers everyone on the day of resurrection, He's going to test everyone and say, everybody go to what they used to worship. So the first thing you're going to be addressed about is about what, everyone? Your creed, your belief system. That's what's going to be asked about and questioned. Even when you die, the first thing is going to be what's going to be addressed, and what's going to be what? What's going to be. The first thing that's going to be tested is your belief system. Soon as you put under the dirt and the dead, two angels are going to come and they're going to sit you up and ask you, what is it? Your Lord, your religion, prophet. Isn't that pertaining to your creed? It's pertaining to your belief system. So the most vital of what a person wants to protect is his belief system. So that's the reason why I told him, don't go to that masjid. Told him that. You know what happened? After I seen that period of time, he got in the car with me. You know what he said to me? He said, oh yeah, Shaykh will send me a kafir. Kafir. He just said it that easy. Kafir. I was like, whoa. So, oh yeah, Shaykh Muhammad Abdul kafir. Kafir. Yeah. I said, wow, look at you. I said, look what they wrecked you up. You wrecked. I said, let me get out this car. I think I was in the middle of downtown. I got out the car and just walked away. I said, look at you, you wrecked. Wrecked your head. Wrecked you and tore you apart. You understand?
What's some of the things that they were being taught then?
Oh, I have a whole book. You want me to start reading down the list?
Nah, just like one.
Well, I kind of just said it already. From them is what we're speaking about now. The whole mission of all the prophets, they destroy it. All the prophets were sent to call to unifying Allah and His worship. They didn't differ in that. None of the prophets are messages. They say you can basically you can perform worship and turn it to other than one deity. You can do it to the dead. You destroyed everything that all the prophets came with. Everything, the whole Quran, the whole book, everything, you destroyed it with that one ideology. Because after that belief system, everything else that you do is what now is all null and void. Nothing else matters after that sin. Nothing else matters, no matter what good or bad you do. That right there is nullify everything. You get what I'm saying, everyone? Your Hajj, your Umrah, you treating people nice and doing things for Allah and trying to be an upright individual, that particular instance right there is nullified, destroyed everything. That's enough right there to make a person say, I'm not going nowhere near there. That's their ideologies? Calling on to other than Allah, to the dead, and all those other things? That's enough. Khalas, done. Say it again. We'll talk about that later, inshallah, because we got to pray. Any other questions about the lesson?
Ibrahim actually built Mecca?
He built the foundations of the house of Allah, which is the Kaaba. He built the foundations. طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.